Hey, Aman, I saw your last video about how we could use LLMs for modularization in GitWit. So yeah, I'm really excited to implement this feature, and I had some ideas for how we could do it. So let's first look at an overall architecture of how GitWit is set up. So you see, we really have three main components, these yellow components of our source code. That would be the client, which runs in the browser, and all of the data is stored locally. Then we have Firebase, which stores the user data, but doesn't actually generate any code. And then we have the GitWit server, which is used for actually generating the code. And so what actually happens is that the client stores the code in the browser when you're editing it. It saves it in the Firebase. And when edits are made, it passes it to the server, gets the response back, and then saves that again in the Firebase. And then we also have stuff like Clerk, which is for authentication. We have OpenAI, of course, and then we have Helicon, which is for logging the requests. So that's the overview of our source code. And let's have a look, starting with a server, of how we might actually implement some of the changes that you talked about. So let's look at the code for the server. And this is where the file that you're working in will get passed from the client, and then the server will generate changes. So this is sort of a complicated file, and there's two reasons why it's complicated. So it has to parse the responses from OpenAI. And normally OpenAI marks the code by using the triple backtick syntax. So the main purpose of this code is to parse that. However, sometimes it doesn't use triple backticks. Sometimes it forgets the first one, or sometimes it forgets the last one. So we have to take all of that into account. And the second reason why this is kind of complicated is that it's also streaming. If we could parse those backticks just one time and we had the full response, this would be much easier. But what we have to do is we have to keep track of where we are in the code, whether we're in the natural language part of the response, the code part of the response, and we have to do that live while we're streaming. So when we edit this to add in the new feature, we're going to have to find a way to detect when a new file is opened, when a file is closed, and what the name of that file is, which is going to add to the complexity of this file. And then the second thing which we're going to have to change is, well, when we output a chunk of code or a line of code and send it back to the client, we send a short message like this, which says type equals text and content equals, and then this is the code that's being added to the file. We also have one other type of output, which is when a dependency is detected. And when a dependency is detected, we figure out the right version to install, and then we send that to the client. So those are the two types of responses. But we'll also have to add now into the response which file we're editing. That part should be pretty simple. And then on the client side, we'll also have to make some changes. So the important part in the client side code is this apply transformation React hook. And that's just a function that happens when we're generating code. And it starts out by making this post request to the server. And to implement the changes that you propose, what we'll have to do is we'll have to also add in probably the file tree here. Because as you notice, the server doesn't actually know what files are in the current project. So that will have to be added into the request. And then additionally, we'll have to find a way to parse back multiple files. Because before, we were parsing just one file and then streaming that live into the current open page. But now we have to do that with multiple files. Actually creating new files is not difficult. You can have a look at this other hook, which is React transformation. And you can see there's just this function sandpack add file. And then there's a really simple way to edit the contents of a file, which is just sandpack.files. And then setting something within here to set the source code of that file. So that part is pretty simple. But then what we're going to have to do in apply transformation is find a way to apply the transformation when new different files are being passed back from the server. And right now, we just have this one variable, stream content, which is used to accumulate the content as it's passed back from the server for the current file. We wait until a new line that occurs, and then we apply that by pasting it, by updating the text editor. And so we do that and we update the progress bar as that's happening. And then we regularly do some tricks with the UI, like updating the code and also updating the scroll bar. So these are also some small details which we're going to have to think about. How do we want the editor to act as the code is getting passed back? Because it's really important for the user to sort of have that live feedback and to see what's going on. So yeah, that's pretty much the thoughts that I had. And I think keeping this architecture in mind will help as we're going about implementing that. The server, which actually does the transformation, and the server, which holds the files, are not actually connected right now. That's helped to simplify the development a lot so far. If we're going to keep it that way, is going to be something we have to think about going further down the line. But for now, I believe that these changes are possible to do, keeping in mind the current architecture. So yeah, hopefully talk to you more about this tomorrow and in the coming days, and we'll find a solution together to make this work. But yeah, overall, I'm really excited to get this into a product so that we can start letting GitWit edit not just one file at a time, but multiple files. And that's going to make things a lot more fun and easy.